Hey guys, we're finally back with another charm theory, or, well, now that I think about it, it's probably less a theory, more so pointing out some major flaws with the Rex and Hannah arc of the show and what I think they might have been originally planning, but for whatever reason completely changed it at the last minute. So yeah, I'm really excited about this one, and I hope you guys will like the video. So, Rex and Hannah are two villains that were introduced in the very first season of Charmed in the episode I've Got You Under My Skin, with Rex being Rex Buckland, the owner of Buckland's auction house, who invites Prue to interview for them, where she also meets Hannah, Rex's assistant/girlfriend. After a bit of back and forth and a test of her skills, Prue does get the job, but we very quickly learn that there's more to Rex and Hannah than meets the eye.
Watch out! Well, what do you think?
I think either she's the luckiest woman alive, or she's a witch.
So even though it was clear that Rex and Hannah were well aware of the fact that Prue was a witch, and that probably wasn't a good sign, it was very hard to tell what their end game was because they didn't really do anything at first. They got a fertility effigy for the Queen of the Underworld, Hecate, in the Wedding from Hell, but other than that, they mostly just acted like co-workers, with Rex being the friendly boss.
Hi, Rex.
Hello, Prue. How are you? Is that the sister that I met, Phoebe?
No, I have another sister, Piper. Although Phoebe will be helping her out.
I see. And what about you then?
Me?
And Hannah being that co-worker that just kind of seems to hate everyone.
The tribe believed that its mere presence would help a woman conceive.
You take it. My biological clock's not the one that's ticking.
Hey, Tanya.
Personal call, Prue?
Personal business, Hannah, and I swear that that's my name on the door. Don't you hate turkey?
Of course I do. I just don't want you to have it.
It wasn't until the 9th episode, The Witch is Back, where it became clear that Rex and Hannah were after the sisters' powers and tried to steal them by tricking Prue into opening a locket and releasing Matthew, who could copy a witch's power when it was used against him. And he goes after the sisters and tries to steal their powers. That doesn't work out very well for Rex and Hannah, so at the end of the episode, they're freaking out, trying to figure out what to do, and decide it's time to take matters into their own hands.
We're going to have to think of something faster. He's going to be none too pleased to learn that we have failed.
You should have listened to me, Rex. We should have taken care of them ourselves.
You're right, Hannah.
So in the next episode, Wicked Envy, Rex uses astral projection to orchestrate a situation where Prue is framed for grand theft and murder, and the only way out is for the sisters to give their powers up to Rex. Backed into a corner, they do just that, and just as Hannah is about to kill them, plot armor kicks in, Leo heals the book, and the sisters get their powers back just in time to switch places with Rex, who is inadvertently killed by Hannah, and they're both sent to hell. Or wherever. And we also learned in the episode that Rex and Hannah apparently killed the real Rex and Hannah, assumed their identities, took over the auction house, and that's how they were able to pull this all off.
Just thought you'd like to know you're off the hook.
Turns out you were right. Rex and Hannah were setting you up, or whoever they were.
I don't understand.
Well, we think they killed two people, assumed their identities, and took over the auction house. And they bilked it dry and tried to cap it off with stealing the tiara.
Which we found hidden in his office.
So yeah, at first glance, it seems pretty cut and dry that Rex and Hannah are both just selfish, evil warlocks that were after the sisters' powers all along, but I can't help but feel that it's more complicated than that, especially when you consider the various plot holes and problems with their character arc. So it makes me think, maybe the show was originally building Rex and Hannah up one way, and for whatever reason just decided to go in a different direction in Wicked Envy, because I mean, that's the episode where most of the issues lie anyway, and oh, would you look at that, Brad was involved. Oh, isn't he just the gift that keeps on giving?
Ones you can't return.
So yeah, personally, my theory is that I believe that Rex was Rex Buckland. I just think he was Rex Buckland Jr. And his father was Rex Buckland Sr. He grew up in an affluent family that came over from England at some point, given his accent. They opened an auction house, Buckland's, and Rex grew up learning the business so that one day he could take over from his father. And while he did have an appreciation for art and history, I think there was still a part of him that craved excitement and passion, and he wanted to choose his own path, but that just didn't seem possible with the cards he'd been dealt. Enter Hannah, a young, beautiful woman that began working at the auction house and swept Rex off his feet. He was crazy about Hannah, but Hannah had a secret. Turns out there was a magical world coexisting with our own, and Hannah was not only part of it, but she was part of the dark side of it. And once Rex learned the truth, instead of leaving her, he decided to embrace the idea and join her. But if Rex wanted in the club, he was going to have to prove himself to the Source by delivering him the powers of the Charmed Ones. Succeed and you can join his dark forces. Fail and you both pay the price. So Rex and Hannah decided to expedite Rex's inheritance of the auction house by getting dear old dad out of the way, and not necessarily by murder either, because remember, it wasn't established until Wicked Envy that anyone had died. In Rex's first appearance, he did say that he'd recently taken over the auction house from his father, but not because it was due to his father's passing.
I'm new to all this. I've only just taken over the house from my father, so I'm very protective of it.
It could have been the case that maybe Rex Buckland Sr. was just looking to retire, or maybe Rex and Hannah put him out of commission somehow. And since Rex knew he would need to find a way to lure Prue to the auction house, what better timing could there be? Seems a little bit too perfect, doesn't it? And I'm not entirely convinced that Rex didn't have something to do with the coup at the museum that caused Prue to quit in the first place. He just knew a little bit too much about her and her work there for him not to have been watching, at least for a while.
How many exhibitions did you curate?
7, including the Carlton estate. It should be on my resume.
Franklin Carlton. That's quite a coup. You know, I liked what you did at the museum, attracting a younger market. And it's totally consistent with what I want to do here.
I mean, they orchestrated this. Why not that? Especially since, wasn't the date that the original Rex and Hannah went missing something like August? And the very first episode of Charmed took place in October, so that would suggest there was at least a couple months premeditation, so that's definitely enough time to watch, wait, and then stage some sort of coup to make her quit. Especially if Rex really was part of an affluent family, then it would make sense for him to assign in other positions of power, right? Like maybe a board of directors at a museum, which would make sense for an auction house to work with.
Which is why the board wants someone a little more qualified to handle the collection from now on. I could hardly say no to the entire board of directors, could I?
See? It's all a little bit too perfect, right? So yeah, that's what I think the original idea for Rex and Hannah was. A mortal born into a wealthy family that fell for a warlock, and together they took over the family business to try and further their own ends, and it just didn't end up working out for either one of them. And I think there's actually a surprising amount of evidence to support this idea in the show, starting with Rex being Rex Buckland, but Rex Buckland Jr. instead of Sr. I mean, like I said earlier, in one of his very first scenes, he says that he's only just taken over the auction house from his father. And most of what we saw from Rex and Hannah's appearances actually supports this idea. All of the staff seem to know who he is and are comfortable with him. He seems to know the business and the way everything works and keeps things running pretty smoothly, all things considered. Honestly, it isn't until Rex and Hannah's very last episode, Wicked Envy, that the idea of them being imposters is even introduced. And even then, there's a lot of problems with that idea. Like how Rex and Hannah are apparently imposters, and yet no one in this huge office building noticed the owner and his assistant, who were both found dead on the same day, are not only alive and kicking, but also look completely different. Seems like that would have raised at least a couple of red flags, especially since Rex and Hannah are both listed in the police database as dead, and their homicide is an open investigation. And not only do we see Andy and Daryl, who are police investigators, speaking with Rex and Hannah on several occasions, but they actually refer to them by name.
Thanks, Mr. Buckland. CSI will be done with the windows in a couple hours, and you can have them fixed.
Webster. Hannah Webster.
It's like, huh? Thought they were supposed to be dead, as listed in your own police database. How is it that the writers didn't think about the implications of all this when they wrote the episode? Also, I don't know who designed this database, but much like the Hallowell family tree, it clearly wasn't thought out very well. Because if you look at the dates of birth listed for the, quote, real Rex and Hannah, that would make them about 24 and 22 years old respectively. And I know you can't always tell someone's age just by looking, but I think it's pretty obvious that the people pictured in the database are older than 22 and 24. Heck, even the Rex and Hannah we're familiar with were older than that. And their date of death is listed as August 20th, 1998, which was almost 2 months before the sisters even received their powers. Not to mention, Prue was still employed at the museum, so there would have been no reason to orchestrate this whole auction house takeover just to target a witch that nobody even knows is a witch yet. If they really were evil and that was their endgame from day one, it would have made much more sense for them to integrate themselves at the museum and watch over Prue that way. With the information we're given in the show, it just makes no sense whatsoever for them to have foreseen that she was going to quit the museum and be willing to come work at the auction house 2 months before any of it even happened. So yeah, there's so many problems with that whole imposter scenario. It really does feel like this whole thing was just thrown together at the last minute, especially when you consider that the database creates more plot holes than it solves. It also doesn't make sense that when Prue tries to search for Rex and Hannah in the Buckland's database that it showed no results. There was no reason that the records for the original Rex and Hannah should have been completely wiped from the system, even if they had died. The auction house would still need its records, and erasing them would definitely raise more suspicions, which you obviously wouldn't want if you're an imposter. And it becomes even more ridiculous when you think about all the paperwork that would have gone into them running the auction house. Signing checks, business deals with clients, allegedly embezzling from the company. There would have been some sort of paper trail there. To have nothing at all, it's just kind of lazy. Especially when the people running the auction house were apparently found dead on the same day. I mean, I know that there are spells that can alter your appearance or identity or make the world see you as someone you're not, but I don't think that would have made sense for that to be the case here because, well, first, if Rex and Hannah were powerful enough to cast a spell like that in the first place, then it should have been pretty easy peasy lemon squeezy to steal the sisters' powers, especially since they were still so new to them. And also because the minute Andy looked Rex and Hannah up in the database, he immediately recognized they were imposters, which likely wouldn't have happened if they had used magic to assume the real Rex and Hannah's identities. He would have just saw them as he always did.
Why, Hannah, you've changed.
And also, has anyone ever noticed that Rex and Hannah are very comfortable calling each other Rex and Hannah, and even call each other that when they're alone and there's no reason to keep up the pretense?
Rex, that was my ticket.
Hannah kitten. Don't pout, Hannah.
Rex.
Hannah, now, quickly!
You should have listened to me, Rex. We should have taken care of them ourselves.
You're right, Hannah. Stop worrying, Hannah. Gonna get wrinkles on your horns.
Yeah, it could just be part of the game and they're just trying to keep up the facade, but it just seems odd. And don't you think if they were imposters, we would have learned their real names at some point? It's just... Like I said before, it really feels like they were originally building Rex and Hannah up as either mortals who turned to the dark side or a mortal who fell in love with someone from the dark side. And either way, they needed to prove themselves in order to garner favor with the source. And I personally tend to lean more towards the idea that Rex was a mortal who fell in love with a warlock rather than them both having started out mortal, just for a few reasons. One is that I really do think he knows way too much about art, history, and the way the auction house runs for someone who is apparently an imposter that's new to it all, and it's weird to think that someone who apparently had no background in this field whatsoever was so good at it. Either he was a natural or he grew up in this environment. And Rex also didn't seem to appreciate Hannah's antics either. I think he might have found it endearing when it was just between the two of them, but whenever he caught her acting up at work, he had something to say about it.
That's very careless of you.
What the devil?
Oh, Rex, I told you I'd get him dressed.
Yeah, 10 minutes ago. What the bloody hell do you think you're doing?
I don't know. It came out.
No. It didn't just come out. You almost came out. What, am I supposed to believe that all of a sudden you've lost complete control of your faculties?
No.
In essence, I always thought that the way Rex operated, especially as a boss, had a very human element to it. So, I don't know, there's just a lot about him that strikes me as mortal. Especially when you consider the little things, like the fact that Rex had a gun in his desk. Like, you would think that if he and Hannah had powers and were evil from the start, why would they need a gun to defend themselves? It's just one of those little things that's much more human than warlock. And speaking of powers, we see hints here and there that Hannah always had powers, like how she lights Rex's cigar in The Truth Is Out There and It Hurts, and she can obviously shapeshift into a panther, but he displays absolutely no magical abilities until his very last episode. And even when his power is alluded to in The Witch's Back, it's very clear that it's a new power to him.
Then why didn't you follow him?
I tried. Why don't you just follow them right now?
Because I haven't mastered that ability yet, unfortunately. You know, I rather like this new power.
So I think it's possible that he was given that power to help complete his mission for the source. And the thing is, humans joining the underworld is not actually unheard of in the show. In fact, in the season 3 episode Wrestling with Demons, we learned that there's actually a training academy for that very purpose. Leo even said that demons tend to target people in need.
Is it possible to turn a human into a demon?
Well, there's rumors, stories about demons recruiting humans.
So join the evil and see the underworld?
Kinda. Apparently, the demons go after humans in need and strike your classic Faustian deal. But then the humans are forced into this training academy, a program that destroys their humanity.
So maybe Rex was one of those people. Heck, maybe Hannah was the one sent to recruit him. But since she fell in love with him, they had to prove his loyalty to the source a different way, because we definitely know that the source has a habit of getting other people to do his dirty work. So it would actually make sense and fall in line with his character if he originally employed others to try and steal the Charmed One's powers for him. And I don't know, I just think it's all really interesting, especially since, have you noticed that Rex generally tries to avoid harming others when he can? Like, he wants to get the job done, yes, but I don't think he had much of a stomach for causing pain or killing people, so he tries to avoid it wherever possible. I noticed that when he sends Matthew after the sisters, he keeps talking about getting their powers, not necessarily killing them.
We need Matthew to provide us with the sisters' powers. Otherwise, we don't stand a chance in hell. No, there's no time to be distracted. You must stay on track. You must obtain the last power. Remember, he goes back from whence he came. Once his task is completed.
And even when he gives Matthew the gun, it's meant to be more of a means to try and force him into using the last power rather than actually, you know. And even in Wicked Envy, he still tries to get around it. Notice during the conversation where Rex reveals his true intentions that he offers a way to get their powers without actually having to harm them.
See, there is a special spell in the Book of Shadows that strips you of your powers forever. And this device will capture those powers.
Heck, when Phoebe straight up asks why he didn't just kill them and take their powers, he says,
"Why all the drama? Why didn't you just kill us and take our powers?" Don't give him any ideas.
No. I have seen exactly what you can do when you've been confronted directly. That is why I opted for blackmail.
Which isn't actually true. He's had ample opportunity to attack Prue at work, especially when she's like fallen asleep or been otherwise vulnerable, and he had Phoebe alone in an abandoned apartment and she had no offensive powers to protect herself, so it would have been easy to attack her or at the very least kidnap her as extra leverage against her sisters, but again, he didn't. And it's even implied in The Witch's Back that Hannah wanted to attack them directly, but Rex resisted the idea.
You should have listened to me, Rex. We should have taken care of them ourselves.
So, I really do think that Rex was a mortal who wanted to join the dark side, but I think he was more enamored of the idea of power rather than a genuine desire to hurt other people. I think the only reason he finally relented and agreed to kill the sisters is because the source was clearly not happy with the two of them, and even though the powers might allow him to return with honors...
This will help me return with honors. We're going to have to think of something fast, though. He's going to be none too pleased to learn that we have failed. It'll buy us a little bit of time, but precious little. We need Matthew to provide us with the sisters' powers. Otherwise, we don't stand a chance in hell.
It still might not have been enough, even though I don't think the idea sat very well with Rex. Yeah, I think whenever it came to that, he tried to get out of it, and when he couldn't, he pretty much put others in the position to do the dirty work, like Matthew, and I think there was a reason it was Hannah who killed the security guard, and when she realized the source was going to punish them both for failing, she immediately turned on Rex.
It was my fault. I didn't fail, they did!
Which to me kind of suggests that her love for him was never really real, or at the very least it was surface level. And you know, wasn't it said in Love Hurts that evil can't actually love?
Dark lighters aren't capable of love, Alec.
There's no such thing as evil love, it's just gratification. Lust.
Cole said that evil can't love.
I wonder. And this is the last thing I promise, but another reason I think Rex could have been immortal is that if we look at the scene where he dies, did you ever notice how his body doesn't automatically disappear or disintegrate? Even though every other warlock or demon that we've seen die on the show, regardless of how they were killed, their body was instantly destroyed with magic. Nothing happened until the source intervened. If he was a warlock, wouldn't his body have just been instantly destroyed? Like melted away or something? Just something I noticed I thought was weird for a supposed warlock, but yeah, anyway, long story short, that is my theory / takeaway from the Rex and Hannah plot. I tend to ignore a lot of what was established in Wicked Envy because I don't think it makes a lot of sense, and I think if they were going to have Rex and Hannah attack the sisters to try and take their powers, then I think there were a lot better ways to do it than to just make them imposters out of nowhere. So yeah. That's what I think anyway. How about you? Do you like Rex and Hannah? Did you wonder if there was more to the story, or do you like the way it played out in the show? Let me know, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day or night wherever you are. Bye!